Welcome to Homeless Not Hopeless, the podcast that brings you real stories from those who've experienced homelessness. I'm Kevin.
And I'm Barry.
How's everyone doing? We're happy to be back with our fourth episode and a new guest whose stories challenge the typical stigma surrounding homelessness.
Yeah. And as a teenager, Ernie was exposed to situations that placed a heavy sense of responsibility on his shoulders, leaving him in a constant state of alertness and self-protection. His stepfather struggled with addiction, bringing significant chaos and difficulty into the family home. In his 20s, Ernie went through a divorce, an experience which completely understandably came with his own set of struggles, complexities and consequences, especially with a child involved. What he didn't realise at the time was that he'd been living in a constant state of flight or fight survival mode that shaped every decision and reaction. And I think that's most people can relate to that if they've experienced those things. Many people don't recognise how deeply not feeling safe or heard can impact their mental well-being. It affects daily life, and most importantly, it's exhausting. Before we introduce you to Ernie, we want to touch on something that's closely connected to his story: psychological burnout. And not just from work, but from life itself.
Most of us can relate to feeling burned out at some point, but how many realise the mental exhaustion they've been carrying since childhood? The signs aren't always obvious, and it can take years to name it. Usually when you hit a breaking point, when nothing seems to work, when you keep pushing forward but feel drained of willpower. People who've experienced trauma are at a higher risk of developing burnout. However, while not everyone who's experienced trauma will develop burnout, it's important to note that burnout can also occur without any history of trauma. Childhood trauma in particular can have harmful, long-lasting effects on a person's physical, mental and emotional well-being. Trauma can occur when a child experiences an event or a series of events that threatens their sense of safety and security.
Mm-hmm.
It's no secret that such trauma can leave a lasting imprint. While some children are able to recover with the support of a family and community, others may go on to develop conditions such as anxiety, depression, post-traumatic stress disorder, or substance dependency.
Yeah, and research has shown that experiencing childhood trauma can increase the risk of burnout later in life. Now, burnout is a state of physical, emotional and mental exhaustion caused by prolonged or chronic stress. And its effects can be severe, leading to depression, anxiety and substance abuse, as you've just mentioned. But studies have also found that adults who experience childhood trauma are more likely to suffer from chronic diseases, which I didn't know about. But it makes sense because everything is internal, right? So trauma also affects how we respond to stresses as adults. When we're constantly in a state of high alert, our bodies become overwhelmed and begin to break down. Chronic stress can result in fatigue, insomnia, and a weakened immune system. It can also make it more difficult to manage everyday challenges and may lead some individuals to rely on unhealthy coping mechanisms like substance abuse.
However, this is not the case for our next guest. Despite living in a persistent state of fight or flight, he never turned to drugs or alcohol. He never gave up. And to this day, he continues to push forward even when life keeps throwing obstacles in his path. Since his teenage years, he's lived in hostels, night shelters, or has been sofa surfing. He's lost jobs, worked far from home, and at one point even lived in his car. I've done that too, Ernie. His separation from his son, experiences of physical assault, and receiving enormous electricity bills, which eventually led him to losing rented property and a commercial venture which he invested in, have all taken a toll. He's also had to change occupations multiple times. All of this, layer upon layer of hardship, has contributed to a lifelong state of burnout.
The last few years haven't been easy either. Just before the pandemic hit, he was living in a community for people who had experienced homelessness. He later moved into university accommodation as he began studying sound art part-time, working towards a degree. But during that time, more problems arose in various forms. So, eventually, he decided to discontinue his studies and found himself homeless again. Amid all the ups and downs, his creativity has been a steady thread running through everything. Ernie is a photographer and a musician, and his work has been featured in British Vogue, in collaboration with the Saatchi Gallery. He's delivered workshops during the Homeless Reframed exhibition last year, and he's composed soundtracks for short films and continues to create to this day.
Well, let's not delay any further. Let's meet our guest, Ernie.
Yeah, good idea. How you doing, Ernie?
Hello, how are you?
Yeah, good. Thanks for coming along. Appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me.
And what a story, to be quite honest. Just hearing it is bloody exhausting, really. So we can only imagine, what it was like for you, experiencing it. But more important, we're thrilled to have you here, mate. Honestly, genuinely, thank you. So I think with every story, I think it's best just to start from the beginning, really. Many of the challenges you faced seem to be rooted in sort of childhood trauma. Would you mind telling us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So, regards the situation, I guess, and where did the homelessness journey sort of begin? I guess there's many things that kind of can contribute.
Yeah.
But I think some of the most pivotal sort of moments, I guess, when I look back afterwards, and I sort of realise that might have had an effect on my behaviour, on the way that I, and all sorts of things. I guess they were based in sort of like maybe traumatic circumstances, and some are more traumatic than others.
Yeah. Like you say, hindsight.
Yes.
And age, maturity, isn't it? Wisdom. You go, oh.
I think that's it. Yeah, and having some guidance afterwards, and sort of realising, maybe those you fall into certain patterns because of certain things that you've experienced, that sort of thing.
I can relate to that, mate.
Yeah, mate, 100%.
Falling into patterns, mate. Discuss a few patterns later on that I got into, but, say no more.
Yes, it's interesting. Like many people in this day and age as well. First of all, I come from a broken home, so that causes some kind of sort of rift, some kind of disruption.
And again, I can relate to that as well.
Yeah. So there was sort of like a big change, a big transition in my sort of early years, I guess, and there was disturbances around that, and all those sort of things, and a lot of change. And I was living with my mother, obviously, like many people do when they go through that situation.
Yeah.
I had an older brother, but my mum eventually she remarried, and we were pretty, we were well looked after. We lived in I lived in a decent suburb. You know what I mean? It wasn't like there was lack or anything like that in that sense.
It's more the disruption, isn't it?
Yeah, it's more the disruption. But my mum remarried. She remarried somewhere. She knew circumstances. The guy she remarried actually had an addiction problem,
right?
Which was serious. He had a heroin addiction.
Yeah.
And most people would go like, "Why the heck were you getting involved with that?" You know, I mean, it's just like strange.
Love is blind, as they say.
Well, I don't know. Yeah, I think it was that, but I also think there was a purpose. I think my mum had a change when I was quite young, and she'd become what I guess most people would say was a born again Christian.
Right.
And there'd been a lot of battles in that time, I guess, as well, through the previous family sort of thing. She changed as a person to a certain degree.
Yeah.
And she was a lot more bold. She had a lot more self-assurance. And
which is good.
Yeah, and she was just a different person. She had a good heart as well. Is all I can say. I'm not saying that people always get it right.
Of course, there's not many of them about.
I was going to say, show me someone who does, and I'll show you a lot.
Yeah, that's right. But and like any of us, we're learning as we're living, aren't we?
100%.
And so. Yeah, she remarried this guy. He needed help. He had a faith as well. He had a faith, and but he had a bad addiction. He'd been addicted to drugs for a long time, and as much as anything else, it was kind of like a ritual. That every day, that was his reason for living. That was his reason for getting up in the morning. I need to score because
a routine, a habit,
and that had just been there for years and years and years. Yeah. I actually got on all right with the guy, but there was a period in time where I guess when you're young as well, your home is kind of like your safe space, isn't it? And they'd managed to get custody of his daughter, which a big part of it was she would have been in a bad situation, and she's a lot younger than me. She's like 13 years younger.
So you gained a little sister.
So I gained a little sister, and I love her. She's my sister. Even though we're not blood related, and they'd managed to get custody. They had a family home. My mum had gone through a divorce and come out with a decent settlement. So she come out with a house, and so they had those. There was those trappings. There was that security. So to the courts as well, the fact that he was with someone who didn't have a problem, someone who had a life, it made that possible.
Right, gotcha.
You know, and gave her gave my sister a better start. You know?
And also that says a lot about your mum, though, doesn't it? If the courts allowed that, I mean, it just goes to show how pretty amazing your mum was.
Yeah, I think as well that for like I won't go into it too much, but I think that they very much relied on their faith. You know, there was a lot of prayer that went into that. Right. You know, like we want to be, you know, is this right? And not only that, we need help because you know there's got to be a purpose for this. We want to get someone out of a situation where they're in a bad situation and into a better situation. So that was a part of it. But I guess the addiction thing, I always remember, I think the pivotal moment to get to that was I was in my teens, and actually I think my brother was actually downstairs with my sister. I had an older brother, and he was in our front room. He was maybe watching TV with my sister. Actually, I think they might have been watching Sesame Street or the Muppets or something like that, you know. Yeah, that's right. I think Bert and Ernie were probably in there somewhere. But I think
classic.
They were watching that in the front room. She was a toddler, you know. She wasn't that old. And I happened to be somewhere else in the house, and I heard a noise, and I thought, well, that's a bit strange. I heard this noise again. So I went upstairs into the room where I heard the noise, and I found my stepfather, and he'd had what I know now as a dirty hit, and his body was kind of, you know, he was like having muscle spasm type things, and he couldn't get his words out.
Yeah, it's not nice, mate.
And so
especially a young boy.
Yeah. So I mean, I think the thing with me was first of all I picked up the phone. I was going to call an ambulance, and he tried to, you know, he just grabbed me. He couldn't really get his words out, but it was just like, you know, and his hands sort of like really grabbed me. And he said, no, like, you know, the services don't treat people like me very nicely, and he just stopped me from doing that. I felt pretty powerless.
Yeah, of course.
It's all I can say. And I thought, is this guy going to die right now? So the first thing I can honestly say is I probably prayed, because I had nowhere else to turn, you know.
Well, if you couldn't call the ambulance, you're lost. What else? Like you say, you felt hopeless. So
that's it.
You can I just ask you? Are you practicing Christian yourself?
Yeah, I am. Yeah, I'm not religious.
Yeah.
But I see it more as a relationship, and I think that's basically it.
Well, just to clarify that, so regarding your religion, do you feel like you have a relationship with Christ? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Fair play, mate. No worries.
And
so did that in that moment where you were like, right, I can't call the ambulance because he's asked me not to, but at the same time I'm terrified for him.
Yeah.
And then you started praying.
Yeah. Well,
did that give you a sense of like? Because like you said, the word hopeless, because I'm just trying to picture myself in that situation. I think I would have panicked and crumbled. And
yeah, I mean, I don't know what happened exactly. I mean, I called out, definitely. I was like, don't let this happen, you know, because the thing that I was, and the other thing that happened was I always remember I sort of crept downstairs, or I hurried downstairs. I went into the front room, because the first thing that went into my mind was like, oh no, if this all goes wrong, who has to pick up the pieces? You know, subconsciously, it was like, who picks up the pieces? So, and my first thing was, I'm thinking of my sister, because she's a toddler. Oh. You know, she doesn't need to, she's already had enough turmoil in my sort of thought. And then, like, all of a sudden this happens, and then your dad's there, and then 1 minute he's gone. So I just sort of went into the front room where my older brother was, and I just sort of went over to him and whispered in his ear. I said, don't let her out of the room. Like, you know, don't let her out of the room. Don't let her come upstairs, because
you dominate. Yeah,
Dad's not in a good way. And I said, I don't know if he's going to make it, sort of thing. And my brother, I just saw him, his face and his demeanour changed. He was very alert, and then he sort of like just grabbed her, and he just carried on, sort of making contact with the TV. Really, that was funny, you know. Take her, just so that she
bit of distraction, I suppose.
Bit of distraction, just a bit of interaction with her to keep her interested.
Yeah.
So as I left, I just sort of closed the door, and I went back upstairs. And I think maybe my mum, I'd quickly went and got my mum, and I said, just come up. just come up. And she came up and she was kind of in bits, you know, just sort of like upset and stuff like that. And he was trying to reassure, oh, no, I'm going to be okay. You know, he was trying to reassure everyone, but it would look bad. So yeah, I think there was just, in hindsight, I realised, you know, there was a lot of fear and a lot of a weight of responsibility that kind of I felt like fell on my shoulders, like emotionally, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, 100%. Well, that's what I was going to ask you actually. Do you feel that, being a young boy as you were, do you feel that you had to grow up really quickly and take, because the key word there is responsibility, because I've, you know, from my own experiences of knowing other people, I definitely know people felt like they've had to become, it's almost like the adult, bear the responsibility to keep things together.
Yeah,
I don't know if you ever felt that, maybe, or looking back. Or...
Yeah, I think there was certain aspects. Yeah. I felt like I had to. There was. I didn't know. I've met many people who've had it a lot worse. You know, and stuff. You know, and I have to say, you know, I come from a loving family.
Of course, yeah.
And you know, I always cherish that.
Yeah.
But yeah, there was elements of that as well, because I think there was elements of where we were all kind of looking out for someone else's well-being, even as a youngster.
Exactly.
You know, like I'd go out and I'd be concerned about someone's well-being, and I might be on, like, in a car with a guy and he'd be off to go and score or whatever. And I'd be like, well, I just hope he's all right, because, you know, I won't be long. And I didn't really know where he was. I knew where he was going, but I didn't know where he'd gone. You know, as far as I didn't know what building he's in, or where he is. Yeah. So I'd just kind of be left in the car. And this is pre-days of mobile phones. So it's like sometimes I'd be waiting for maybe an hour. Oh, man. What about if something bad's happened?
Well, that's it. Your mind starts running, doesn't it? Because then you think of all scenarios.
That's it, yeah.
So he could be just sitting there waiting, but you're thinking, shit, what if this has happened? What if that's, you know?
Yeah.
That's a lot to bear on the shoulders of a young man, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I guess. I mean, it wasn't until afterwards as well I realised, I think it was, there's a sense that you often sense, because, you know, with the nature of that beast, that game, there's often a lot of deceit, isn't there? You know, because you feel you want to hide it, you know, and coming from like a suburb as well, you don't openly. It was hard for me to openly talk about it, so I become quite guarded in the terms of, like, maybe people had come up to you who knew the family. Oh, I saw such and such. You know, I saw such and such the other day.
You know what you were saying about your dad. I know this is about you, right?
Yeah.
Because that's what the show's about. It's about you, we're interviewing you. But, you know, when you were saying about it, you know, it stuck in my head when you're saying about how he grabbed hold of you, you know, and you know, there's also that aspect of, you know, keeping this private, you know, so people don't get to know what's going on. And then, is that why he grabbed you, or was he, you know? I'm thinking, you know, because I've been in that position that he was in, you know. That to me is like, you know, it's like that was a really, probably, well, I don't know what he's thinking at the time, but it could have been a really difficult thing for him to do, but he done it because of what he thought was the right thing to do regarding news. And that, to me, as I'm listening to that, I got quite emotional listening to that there. So I thought, you know, that takes a lot of, you know, we, like I say, we'll never know exactly his reasons, but, you know, to me, that really speaks volumes to me about, you know, how much it was.
I get. I think I know what you're saying. I do, because it's almost like, because you're right, because we're viewing this story from your point of view, and we're obviously exploring your emotions and your experiences. But I understand what you're saying there, Kev, is what was his point of view in that moment? Because he must have been scared as well. But do you think there was maybe like a sense of protection and love for you? Exactly. Like, I don't want you to have to experience this as well.
Yeah.
So it's a very complicated scenario, isn't it?
It was.
And one that's very emotional. And I think there's so much pressure, because you're thinking, well, what's the right thing to do? And again, going back to you, if you don't mind me saying, is like the way you dealt with that, very calmly came downstairs, didn't alert the toddler, told your brother, and you kind of really took control of the situation. And I think me in that situation, I'd have been a gibbering wreck, and I wouldn't have known what, Mum, you know, calling out. But you didn't. And I think that's massive credit to you. And I think you know, as we find out about your story, I think you've shown that strength throughout,
Right.
without a doubt, you know, and I think that's formidable. I really do.
Yeah, I think I was probably a gibbering wreck inside.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's like a duck on water, isn't it? Calm on the surface, and then the legs going like the clappers underneath. So, and then obviously we're going to sort of move on from that. Again, I appreciate you sharing your story. It's a very, you know, personal, tough experience. And then I suppose we'll just fast forward really, and then you got married quite young as well, didn't you? I think, were you in your early 20s?
Yes, I was in my early 20s.
Yeah.
So to open up on. Yeah, got married in my early 20s, which is, for a lot of people these days, it's kind of, you know, it happens, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess in some ways, there was other things that happened before that. You know, I had a job where I spent a lot of my time at my job. It was almost like I threw myself into that. It was a distraction. And I guess with my marriage, I really wanted it to work out.
Cool.
But there was many factors that really didn't help with that. I mean, the whole aspect of the family stuff and everything that disrupted my schooling. It disrupted my being, really, in a lot of ways. I've got to take some responsibility for that, for sure, because, you know, as well. But there was.
I know what you mean though, because you always kind of, there is a romantic side where you meet someone that you're great with, connect with, and you do think, right, this is it. And you kind of put all your chips, don't you, and think, right, this is it. We're gonna go the whole way. But I know you two had a child together, didn't you? And then ultimately, you divorced, right?
Yeah. I think it could have been it. You know, I think it could have been it. In all honesty. I think, you know, it's just standing the test of time. Sometimes you have to work through these things. But there was a couple of things that happened with me. Was the job that I'd done for quite a long time, and I'd worked my way up. Literally just before I got married, that the business got sold. I worked for an independent business.
Yeah.
And I worked my way from the bottom to the top.
Yeah, wicked.
And it was like, you know, that was all I had, really. I played music and did that sort of stuff. Aside from that.
Yeah, I was going to say, we should mention you're an amazing drummer, right?
I don't know about amazing.
Well,
I was a drum.
He's being modest as well, which I like. It's like Kevin. I tell him he's an amazing guitarist. He's like, I'm all right.
No, but you can keep telling me that.
I've heard you're amazing.
See, I built you up.
Oh, really? Can you tell me a little bit more about
that? But that's the good thing. So yeah, while you were working, you were still, you know, because I want to touch on your creative side as well.
Yeah.
Because obviously that's something I feel from knowing you personally, is that your creativity, your artistic soul has always been a constant for you, isn't it?
Yes.
So you were in a band, right? You were jumping.
Yeah, I was.
You built yourself up at work, but you were also.
I was also doing that and doing it to a decent level.
Yeah, 100%.
At a certain stage, you know, it took a lot of work.
Of course.
And took it seriously, you know.
Yeah.
But so I was at work, and then the business got. And actually, when I met my wife, that I was playing music a lot, so she'd come to gigs and stuff like that.
Yeah, wicked.
I think by the time I decided to get married, I decided, you know, some of these things are going to have to go out the window. You know,
Of course, compromise.
I'm going to have to work more.
Things change,
and I'm going to have to work more money.
Yeah.
And I'm going to have to focus on a more steady career.
Yeah.
But what happened was, just before I got married, as I say, the business got sold, and one of the problems with that was my boss as well. We'd actually got ill a period of years before, and I think he had a stroke and a brain hemorrhage. And I think, again, I felt like I had to be kind of like the glue. It was a family business, and they really liked me. They respected me. They looked after me to a certain degree.
Right.
But like, I just jumped in there, and it was like I'd go from there. I'd be at work, so it was tiring actually. When I look back on it emotionally, I'd be kind of trying to look after the business and trying to do what I could there as a young guy.
Exactly.
How old was you again?
I would have been in my late teens by that point in time.
Oh wow!
By the time he was ill. But then if I went to visit my parents, it was like going there. My stepfather still had problems at that point in time, so it was like chaos going there. And then also being in the band, it was almost like I was very much almost, I guess I was pretty reliable.
So was you a bit like the band leader in that respect, I suppose? Getting people to rehearsals, getting them...
Not necessarily. I think that we all had our jobs to do,
Right, yeah.
and everyone played their part,
Right.
and everyone did it pretty well.
Good.
But I think there was definitely because I had a steady job and things like that, I was able to buy equipment, stuff like that, and I was like, I want out of this life.
Yeah.
I prefer doing this.
Yeah.
I prefer doing this. It's more of an escape for me. And it was, playing the drums. It's almost like similar. I was not a bad footballer, so it's like similar to playing football. It's a good release.
I was going to say that physical release as well, wasn't it?
Yes, yeah.
And would you, again, so going back, if you don't mind, talking about like that creative aspect.
Yeah.
And it was always that that constant.
Yeah.
And I know from personal experiences, and I know from just watching Kevin talk about music and play,
Yeah.
that it is, if you've had a really crap day and you go home, you pick up the guitar and you play, 2 hours goes like that and you feel really calm again. It's like a meditative space.
Yeah.
And like you say, that release.
Sometimes.
So all the pressures of life, whether it's family or work or whatever, you get behind that kit or the guitar or the microphone.
Yes.
And it is that release, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
And do you think that helped you deal with those situations?
I think it did, but I think there was also an element of frustration. And one of my friends, he actually said to me, "You can do a lot. You can do a lot. I've seen you do it." And he used to work with me at times. He was in the band as well, and and he sort of said, "I feel like some of us are holding you back." And I said, "Oh," but sometimes it was like it wasn't the fact of any ability; it was more the fact of the mindset.
Right.
I think they probably didn't understand. I just want out of this, and I want to take this I just want to take this more seriously. And I realise I'm on a timeline probably here. And by the time obviously getting married, I still played, but I realised I'm not going to be able to get out and play as much live because it wouldn't be fair on my wife.
Well, it's been in place, isn't it? Like you say, because of your work commitments. Obviously, you're in a relationship, a wife.
Yeah.
You have to make sacrifices.
Yeah.
Like you say, family life, your stepfather was still struggling. There's only so long that you can spin these plates and juggle where it doesn't take a toll. Because like you say, physically and emotionally, it takes, it takes its toll, right?
Yeah, it did, definitely. And then, as I say, the job changed when I just got married, literally stepped back from my honeymoon, business had changed.
Oh, really?
And it had been sold, but when the boss had sold it, he sort of sold it with me as like a going concern in a way. It was like, this guy can manage this. And, it was a sort of big business that took it over. And they sort of make every promise to you, it's going to stay the same and all that sort of thing.
God.
But it doesn't.
Of course not.
And they didn't like me because I spoke my mind. And not only that, I was a young guy, and they'd come in and they'd try, and I'd just say to them that they'd sort of like ask you all these questions, try and pull you apart, try and do this, and you're like, it's not working, but they just kick you because they knew it wasn't working. You got to make it work. So like there was something in me that I just had to sort of like turn around, and I was just saying, look, you're either going to have to kind of listen to me, and they didn't want to do that. So I was in a really tricky situation. I had mortgage, I'd taken on a mortgage, I had all those sort of things. So
has your son been born?
Not at that point in time. And then a couple of years down, my hours increased with this new job, and it was
with responsibilities.
With responsibilities, and I was just getting phone calls all the time. It was just like what a constant worry. It changed me as a person. I think back to my wife, and I feel sorry for her because all of a sudden, I had so much pressure on me, and she couldn't understand. I probably couldn't communicate it to her that well because I didn't even know what was going on myself. It was just like I was just trying to cope.
Yeah, of course.
And I had a lot of other people's problems. I was in charge of this situation, and it was like a lot of other people's.
That's not. It seems to me that's not a role that's new to you, though, is it? It seems to me like yet again you're having to be the one who's taking responsibility for everything from what you've talked about already. When you was younger, all you've been through in your younger life, and then you've got this you're in this situation with a family, you got a child on the way. You're trying to. So I understand about music and all that, mate. I mean, you know, every probably human being in the world does something along those lines to try and just cope with stuff. Yeah, at all different levels. But you know, you said it took a lot of work. You took it seriously. What I wanted to ask you was, you never turned to drugs or alcohol, did you?
So yeah, I'd used drugs in my teens before my mum actually met my stepfather, and did the normal sort of stuff.
Like recreational, social with your mates.
Recreate, but to a point, I realised, if I had a bad experience as well. I had a bad experience at one point in time, and that kind of turned me off.
Maybe that was a blessing in disguise.
Yeah, when I look back, I think it was. I mean, I needed some help afterwards for sure. I did have some counselling and stuff like that.
Sorry, I'm really glad you said that, because you know we both got that in common. But look, the way you went, and look at the way I went. Two complete different ends of the spectrum. The reason why I asked you that is because I'm really interested and wanting to know, how did you manage that, bruv? How did you manage to, to stay away from drugs and alcohol? Because that's the question. Because knowing myself, I've got a lot of respect for you. That's a hard thing to do. So that's what I'm kind of trying to,
Yeah, where did you find the strength to not sort of stray into that sort of?
Do you know what? I think I've always had a faith,
right?
And I think I probably had a praying mother.
Yeah.
In all honesty, and I think maybe seeing my stepfather, being around other people as well at times who were, maybe dependent on things, it made me realise, do you know what, this isn't the answer. And also having those bad experiences as well, I realised,
Yes, but I don't want to repeat.
Yeah, no, it was there's consequences,
right.
So yeah, there's that. But I think there must have been a guiding light I probably wasn't even always aware of until maybe I was a bit older. But just really thankful. But I think we all have our paths, but all of these things, they can be used for the good in the end, I think.
Yeah, well, that's the thing.
These experiences,
But sometimes I think you're right. Again, I really do relate to that. But for me, especially, I don't know if you boys relate to this, but for me, I found it all out too late. I wish in my 20s I'd have gone, do you know what? You're young. We all make mistakes. Get over it. Move on. Don't aim for perfection, which we'd spoken about before. Just, do you know what? I really wish I could find the words, but it's only in hindsight, isn't it? Because you mentioned before, when you look back, that perhaps things that happened in your childhood affected you. Because I've always been really hard on myself. And then when you look back, you go, oh, do you know what? Maybe it was because of this. But I wish I'd have known that, a lot younger. And I think that's why I asked you the question earlier on. Do you think that you had to grow up quicker because of these responsibilities? And like Kevin said, there's that cycle, you were doing it when you were a kid with the family, then you were doing it with the work, with the business, and also trying to balance a relationship, a marriage.
Yeah.
It's like that's why I asked you at the beginning as well. I asked you about your religious beliefs, and I heard you just mention that there briefly just a moment ago as well, about in the comment about your path, and the comment before about how you feel about your faith in that. And so obviously that's been a big it's been a big deal for you, your faith. So do you feel, regarding everything we've talked about today, do you feel like that has been like one of the most important things in your life? That do you truly believe that that's the thing that's kept you, because everyone's got their own sort of take on that, you know what I mean? I mean, I used to be religious, but I'm not anymore, and so it interests me, because I think I've done the right thing here. You know what I mean? But carry on, sorry.
Yeah, I think the Bible says, that Jesus is the foundation, he's the rock. That God is the Alpha and Omega, and you know, there's certain situations in life I realise, you know, I can't control. And I think, you know what? If there's someone who knows it all, it's God. If he's the Alpha and Omega. And I think it says somewhere in the Bible, in John 14, you know, Jesus said to the disciples, he said, I go away before he's crucified, and I'm going to send you a helper. And it talks about the Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
The reason that he goes away and he dies, he leaves the Holy Spirit. And the disciples are like, oh, you know, they don't quite understand at that point. But more or less he's saying, you know, it says Jesus is many things. It says he's counselor.
Yeah.
And there's many aspects.
He makes everything new.
He makes everything new, yeah.
Do you think that that's what's kept you going and what motivates you through the hard times?
Yeah, good question.
When I look back, I realise, I go, yes, I do think that's true. And I think, yeah, that gives me a hope. And I think when I look back, I go, you know, some of the bad times, it's a process. You know, it's a process of something better happening in me, something new being birthed in me. It doesn't always mean it's going to be easy.
Yeah.
You know, some things come out of real struggle. You know, someone said to me once, you know, like I think it's like a bird or a chicken or something like that. You know, when it's in the egg, if it has any help breaking that egg, it won't survive.
Yeah, gotcha.
You know?
Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, no, I'm just laughing because I just want to sort of add to this that a chicken is a bird, Ernie. All right.
Yeah.
Just get that right, all right.
And it can sometimes grow into a big bird.
Birds. Yeah.
But again, that's wise beyond your years. I mean, I really like Stoic philosophy, right? So I've been reading some of the philosophers, and what you said is, you know, pretty much don't fret on what you can't control. Marcus Aurelius says that. Or in fact, all the philosophers, Socrates, Plato, Marcus Aurelius, right? And they always talk about these things. If it's out of your control, don't fret.
Yeah.
And again, what you said, if you go through hard times or you make mistakes, don't dwell on them. What can you learn from them? And again, you said that. What lessons? There's a reason it's shaping me. What can I learn from those mistakes as you move forward? You know, I mean, you might as well write a book yourself on Stoicism because that's basically what they talk about. You know,
Right. Yeah.
and obviously you put that in your faith that you and Kevin were just saying about Christianity and Jesus and stuff. So was that always like a guiding light for you? That's where you found your strength.
I think after going through a divorce, I think really, you know, because I really had to submit to the fact, you know what, I got to a stage where I really realised I wasn't functioning very well. In all honesty, you know, I was literally like at a stage in my life where I was just broken, and
which is completely understandable.
Just totally broken, and not only that, you know, my reason for many years had been, I look after my wife, I look after my son. You know, that was my reason as a man.
To get up in the morning and do what you did.
And doing my work. And then everything started to crumble. And all of a sudden I was like, where's my identity?
Right.
You know, really, to a certain point. And the Bible says your identity really is in Christ. And I had to find that. I had to go back, I think, on my knees and sort of say, you know, the Bible says, you know, that God has a plan and a purpose. And he says, I knew you before you were in your mother's womb. And I think I read that. And at some point in time, I'd prayed. I'd said, look, if this is the purpose for my life, I don't get it. You know?
Yeah.
Like, please sort it.
Being honest.
And then, like, I didn't realise things did change. And things maybe got a bit worse from my perspective. But sometimes things get worse before they get better.
True, yeah.
And then, and then I think at one point in time, I just sort of said I just cried out and I just said, look, if you had a plan and a purpose for my life, do you know
Let me know bloody now. I want to know what it is. Hurry up.
Well,
I asked him that loads of times, but I didn't feel like I got the answer. That's why I put him in a drawer.
Did you ever seek any type of therapy at all? CBT?
Actually, yes, yeah. So I did have some counselling and stuff like that. There was a period where I'd had a real change and I felt pretty happy, but I just felt like there's something weird about me, you know. I'm not quite fitting in here.
Mate, I was going to say, relatable. I mean, I did CBT as well, and it didn't really quite, you know.
Yeah.
But I know what you mean. You kind of, you do have this thought where you're like, am I a little bit, you know, skew-if, to put it in terms like that? So I get what you're saying. Did it help at all? Or did it, was it just maybe...
Do you know, it's really good because I went to this guy, and it happened to be, someone put me in touch with this guy in a church, and he kind of I got talking to him, and I said, I just come to the conclusion it's this, blah blah blah. And he said to me, I think you're quite right, more or less. And then he said to me, do you know what? If it's any consolation, he said, my life, I felt like it was on a scrap heap. And he said, but I gave the pieces, and I gave the pieces to God, and he said he picked them up and he did something with it.
Right.
And I was like, well, okay, all right, if it works for you, I think I might give this a go.
Well, and the thing is, right, sorry to interrupt you both there, but that's what I think this podcast is about, is to relate, because obviously you can see me and Kevin are relating to a lot of what you're saying. And you related to him, right, because he'd been through certain similar circumstances or whatever it was, like you say, a scrap heap. And that's what we're trying to get out there, that message is out there, because, even through these things that we've been through, everyone goes through something, right? Whether it's worse than someone else or better than someone else, there's always something, isn't there?
Yeah.
We have to try and deal with it in our own way. So our paths sometimes go completely different ways, but there are similarities that we can relate to. So that's what we're hoping that we can get out there. And that's why I want to say about your brilliant accomplishments. So even through all this, like we said, you didn't veer off the track. You stayed focused, you stayed strong, you stayed loyal. And, with your photography, you got in Vogue, didn't you? You took some photos and you got in Vogue. Mate, that is massive.
Yeah, I was pleased about that.
And so you should be. That's huge.
Yeah.
And then you in collaboration with the Saatchi Gallery as well, which is massive. This is all professional stuff as well.
Yes, so I was involved with that. And they're all really good experiences.
100%.
The Vogue thing, it was like, someone got in touch and they said, we used this photograph we've seen that you've taken for an article. And I was
I love it, yeah.
No, the Vogue thing.
Yeah,
that's what I mean, yeah, because you're so modest. Because what I love is as well, it's, when they say it's who you know and all the rest, they contacted you out of the blue, didn't they?
Yeah.
So they weren't like, it wasn't like you knew someone. They were just like, these pictures are great. Who's the photographer? Let's get in touch. Can we get them?
Yeah, so it's like, I thought it was a scam. I thought this doesn't really happen, and it doesn't, but, I looked at it and I contacted a mate and I was like, no, it's actually, I think it might be legit. I might get back to him.
Yeah, I don't want to miss this one.
Yeah, so that was it. I mean, I don't really, I'm pleased with it, but, it's obviously. But yeah, I mean, it's not like it's the most important thing in my life.
Yeah, but this is the thing though. So you're being level-headed about this, because that's the problem, is that someone could let this go to the head and the ego, I was in Vogue, look at me.
Yeah.
But you're like, okay, I made it into Vogue, that's great, but it's not the be-all and end-all.
Yeah, and it might never happen again, so,
It might not, but it could also but it gives you, surely it must give you faith that what you're doing is worthy of the success that you should get, right?
I think so. I mean, you have to, I think, having done these things for a while in the creative sort of field, it's like you have these, for me, you have these periods of, you feel like you have this victory, you have this high, and then all of a sudden it's like there's nothing. And it's like, okay, right, this is the way it is. And you have to learn to navigate that, otherwise it can really affect your mood. So there is times, like I think Kev was saying, you're knocking on doors and you feel like none of these doors are opening. But, I think at some point in time.
That's it. Persistence, just keeping at it. And, fight. When you said about, God gives you focus. It's like, what is that thing that we all try? We all try to find something in our lives to focus us, I mean, you like you say, yours is God, and that's fantastic, mate.
Yeah.
I want to ask you another question. You spent years in and out of supported accommodation.
Yeah.
What have you found most challenging about sort of accessing this kind of support?
About accessing it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true, because we've all got our experiences of that. Yeah. How was your experience with trying to get help and support? It's a good question.
In the support, I lived in a community,
right,
where you kind of like worked, where you did work. You worked as like a volunteer, but you got your room and your board, blah blah blah. And it certainly came with its challenges.
Yeah.
I was grateful for it. I was grateful for a roof over my head. I was grateful for a bed of my own while I was there and stuff like that, and the stability. there's challenges that come with it because you're living in a community of people with all sorts of different backgrounds and all sorts of different problems going on in their lives, and people are frustrated. Access, getting support in other ways. It's almost like when you're in those places, it's almost like you're in a holding place. You know, you're kind of like in the middle.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to. That's exactly what I want you to talk about.
So so you're in a transitional. So it's frustrating.
Yeah.
So for sure, you know, and you're sometimes surrounded by people who have got a lot of frustrations. So for me, it was often, you know, often like, you know, I have to operate in a level of self-control.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you about. How did you navigate that kind? Because I've been in and out of these environments my whole life. I've been institutionalized. Yeah. So you know, the same but different. That expression again.
Yes.
But you know, that really interests me. How did you kind of navigate your way? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, totally. From my experience, I think sometimes you go into those places and you can almost try and become part of the furniture a bit too quickly.
Trust me, mate. I know that one too. Don't even start me. Don't even get me into that one. I know about being part of the furniture. Yeah, right. We'll leave that one right there. Carry on. Go on.
It's your wooden leg, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Nice patina. Yeah, a walnut. Yeah.
I'll agree with the nut part. I don't know so much about the wall.
But it's kind of like you're coming into someone else's space if people have lived there for a long time, and you're obviously going to get tested. Is from my experience, you know. So for whatever reason, you know, when I came in, I sort of you can sense there's almost a wall, and if people have been through bad experiences, I guess they're gonna test you.
You started this off. I asked you a question about you know, your religious beliefs. You all the way through this interview, you've talked about how strong that is for you, and it just makes me realise that, you know, that's the thing that you've placed most of the emphasis on to get you through stuff. And obviously everyone's different. We all have different. You know, it was just about your religious beliefs and how they've got you through. You know, and we've all got things that get us through.
Yeah.
And what is it about that? Do you know what I mean? Not your religious beliefs, but in people in general, we all need to. We're all searching for that thing. That is it going to resolve? You know, see me. For me in my own life, yeah, I've been searching, like every human being is searching for do you know that key that you can just put in the door and turn it, and it just, you know, it's the quick and easy way, you know. But sometimes in life, I think it's, you know, things take a lot of graft, mate. Do you know what I mean? Things take a lot of graft, and then on top of that, you've got your religion, so you're putting in the work, you're rolling your sleeves up, you know. But you know that thing about finding that thing that makes sense to you as an individual that you can hold on to, and like a life buoy almost in a rough street sea,
like a lighthouse.
Yeah, I think and like a buoy, like a cork bouncing on the water, keeping you afloat. You know, it's like, you know, I think everyone's searching for that. Everyone's searching for that kind of thing.
But one thing I did want to ask you, which was unrelated to that, but I completely agree with you, Kev. I really, honestly, I really understand what you mean.
Yeah.
Because we all drift, like you said, I like that analogy of a cork, because these rough seas and you drift over that way. So you might see the shore over there, and that's where you want to get to, but then you drift off, and then you think, oh God, it's never going to happen. How do you keep that strength? How do you keep that belief? What's in it, your future creatively? Because I know that, you know, your photography.
Yeah.
I know you produce as well. You know, and I've seen your work, as I've said before. I don't want to keep blowing everyone's horn, but yeah, you're great.
Thank you.
What's in the future for you? Have you got anything in have you got plans? Have you got anything that you're doing at the moment?
I'm remaining pretty open, to be honest with you.
Good.
No, I'm not entirely sure. You know, it's one of those things where there's not a lot of security in that game. You know, so yeah, just wanting to do things that I connect with, things that I enjoy doing, and obviously things that are paid as well.
Totally.
So
It often helps, doesn't it?
yeah, things are sustainable. But obviously, I don't want to connect myself with things that I'm not necessarily interested in just because it's about money.
The heart of a true artist.
So I don't know what lies ahead in the future, but hopefully I'll be around like-minded people and work on interesting
Projects.
And I'd like to do more photography. I'd also like to be involved in sort of music and sound stuff.
Yeah.
In some aspect, because that's one of my loves.
Yeah.
And I guess film is like the kind of bridging point for those two to me.
That's a good point. Yeah.
We've got Mrs. Spielberg there. She can probably point in the right direction.
Yeah. Spielberg.
Miss Spielberg.
Yeah. Forgive me if I get it wrong. If I've misinterpreted the question. Yeah, I think for me, like you were saying, you're looking for that key to open that lock. I mean, I believe we're all made for a purpose, and I do believe that's to worship God. In some form. I think we're all looking for something. We put idols in our life. We put things in there that mean a lot to us. But for me, it was like when I had an experience, I was like, that was the missing piece of the jigsaw. Not saying that my life like automatically was like a bed of roses.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was a big part of it. I can't remember all of the question, but yeah, that's it for sure. I mean,
no, I mean basically in a nutshell. It was I just wanted to make a point of for you that was. It seemed to me that was something in your life, which was the thing that more than anything else you talked about, which has helped focus you on where you are and how you've how you're navigating. There's that word again, and how you're getting to where you're trying to get to. It come across to me. You started with God and you ended with God, and I just want to say good luck to you with that.
Yeah, 100%.
Good luck with you.
Thank you. Yeah. I think that's it. You want to end. I want to end with God.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, I mean, and I think that's it. Submitting. It's not necessarily. It says in the Bible. It says, "I'll give you your heart's desires." And for me, once upon a time, I was like, my desires are this. I want this. I want that. And then all of a sudden, I was like, what are your desires? What are your desires for me? You know better than I know. If you had a plan and a purpose for me. So yeah, there's that. And it says in the Bible, it says the only way to the Father is through the Son, Jesus. And I guess I'm someone who wants to seek truth. And the more and more I was seeking, I was, I thought I had all these opinions. It says in the Bible that Jesus, he gives us the spirit of truth, the spirit that's going to lead us into all truth. And, the more and more I've pushed into that, something's opened up in my visual plane. Yeah. Yeah,
no, but I kind of think that's a great way of coming to the end there, so because that's kind of where I'm at. That is the thing for you, absolutely, that you can see how much it means to you. You can hear how much it means to you. Finally, do you have any advice for others who are struggling? Was there something that helped you that you think could potentially help others too?
Yeah, definitely.
Anyone listening,
Yeah, I mean, throughout the thread of what's I guess it's calling on the name of the Lord Jesus for me, because it says, blessed are the poor in spirit, and I think I realised I needed help.
I hear you.
Could you say that again, sir?
Blessed are the poor in spirit, because I think I realised I was poor in spirit. I needed help, and I realised it probably wasn't going to come in some human form. There was a lot of that I needed to get off my chest that I could I couldn't even express. But someone else knew, because they'd been there throughout the entire process and seen it all, and it's like, I just need help.
But again, that's a really high level of self-awareness, though, isn't it? I think so, anyway.
I don't know.
Well, that's the thing. It seems to me, again, through hearing your story, that you've always had that sort of a wise head on young shoulders, that self-awareness. And it reminds me of, there's a beautiful quote where it says, the measure of a man is not him when he's successful, it's when he's struggling, you know? And if you find yourself walking through fire, just keep on walking. And for me, I think that sums you up perfectly.
Yeah,
I really do.
I think sometimes the fire can be refining. You know what I mean? It burns up the dross.
Yeah.
Burns off, I like that.
See?
Burns off the. That's, oh, yeah, bruv, that's lyrics, Bridgie. Get me.
I'm saying, so you've added to that quote. I mean, beautifully. I think that's perfect. And, you know, on that note, listen, Ernie, thank you so much for coming in. I really appreciate you giving us your time, talking to us, and being so honest. You know,
Thank you for having me.
no, please listen. We're really grateful. Honestly, Ernie, it's been a pleasure having you with us. Thanks again. Your resilience is truly inspiring. We hope that by sharing your story, others may begin to recognise the signs of unresolved child trauma in themselves, feel less alone, and be encouraged to seek support. So, anyone listening, if you're struggling with your mental health, please don't hesitate to speak to your GP. If Ernie's experience of living in a constant state of fight or flight resonates with you, know that help is out there. Trauma-informed therapists, CBT with a trauma focus, and EMDR are just some of the options available. Your GP can help you explore what support is accessible in your area. And if you or someone you know is in urgent need of mental health support, you can call 111 for immediate guidance. And please do. For those affected by homelessness, or if you're concerned about someone who may be sleeping rough, please contact StreetLink on 0300 500 0914. They work to connect people with local services that can offer support and a safe place to turn.
Thanks so much for joining us today. We hope to have you with us again next month for more stories and conversations. Until then, take care, and as always, stay tuned.
Today I see only one way remains for me. Reflect upon regret. Realize I took the bed upon some faded ideology. If you fall in love with a narcissist, expect to crack. Slit your head. Bridges built over emotion split, crushed and left by soulless face. Gateways intact, arching broken backs, seeking deep, lion tracks fat. Bridges built over emotion split. Bridges built over soulless fist. Bridges built over ones we just can't see. Bridges built over Bridges